Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for October 5th, 2016. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. I'm looking here at the daily chart of the ES, and right now what you see is price basically continuing to trade within a fairly narrow range overall. That has led to some nice intraday trading so far here over the last couple of weeks, but really not much in the way of directional swing trading. We're still mostly at the apex of this developing coil or wedge, and we continue to just trade within this pattern. We continue to hold around the midpoint of the larger key range, and we're just chopping just above the September 21st FOMC level of 2135 quarters. So not much is really happening here on a swing basis. At some point, I would imagine that we would test one of the outer edges, either 2100 down here, or go back up and test 2188s up above one of the outer edges of the key range. But right now, we still continue to hold within this pattern's apex, at least perhaps until non-farm payroll comes out pre-market Friday. Now, if we take a look at the intraday time frame here, what you'll notice, we've seen some very, very nice trading behavior here recently. We had a great channel in the previous session where we were looking for rotations. A lot of active movement and great volatility here. And in overnight trading, what we've seen is the previous session's close here. Price chopped around it and eventually took it bid and has rallied to new highs. So we could be looking at a continuation back up toward 5-day value, which is 2152 half. And then we could look at a continuation back toward the previous week's close price, which is 56.75. So right now we're starting to make our way higher. A retest back toward 2145 to 2146 could offer an opportunity to squeeze this into 2156.75. Okay, let's take a look now at crude oil. So here's crude oil, and looking at a daily time frame, this one has been quite bullish. At some point here, we need to call an official breakout and look to defend the first major pullback. But right now you can see, we've had this range here where we've been developing, and we were looking for further trading range behavior, and then we were looking for expansion at some point. Once price got beyond 48s, we were looking for acceptance or rejection beyond that 48. And what we got was acceptance. I kept mentioning if we can't hold 48s, we may get a rotation back down, but instead, every time price gets back toward 48, bulls come in and defend, and then now you're seeing acceptance above that zone. So this right here leads to perhaps more continuation to the upside. We're just seeing a push beyond previous highs here. So we're at territories we haven't seen since the beginning of July. And anytime you get a push beyond the upper 25% level, from the midpoint of the key range, that would imply at least a retest of the outer edge of the range, and that's going to be 5167. So we could be looking at a move of at least another 2 handles into 5167s ahead. Now I would say that the first pullback needs to be defended by bulls. So any rotation downward, it could be a quick 1-day or 2-day rotation. It could be a 3-day pullback. We don't know yet, but once price does pull back, bulls want to come in and defend it and look to squeeze and attempt to push beyond that level, at least on a first test basis. So a couple of things to look out for with crude. I would say right now it's just a buy the dips type of thing, so we need to be directionally bullish at this time. And if we look at the intraday time frame, you can see here price traded mostly sideways in the previous session here, mostly sideways, and then late in the session, we saw price push up and close just above the range. A little bit of a chop in overnight after hours trading, and since then it's been straight up. Very nice slope on VWAP here. Pullbacks are to be bought. We're in right now a continuation. If we look at this thing from a bull targets perspective, putting up the bull targets here, what you'll see is from the low, the overnight low, 49.09. The primary upside target based off PivotBoss AER method, which is a very accurate method, points at 50.33. So that could be the primary upside target today, 50.33. and a 100% target, which would mean an average move over the last 2 weeks, 10 sessions, would be 50.73. So we definitely have more room to run to the upside if the first major rotation back toward 49.35, back into this zone, and especially back into 49.09. These are the two must defend areas for bulls in order to get this thing going to the upside into those higher targets. All right, let's take a look at gold futures. Now, gold had a significant sell-off in the previous session. Huge ADR move. The one-day daily range here was the biggest since Brexit. A big-time move, and it was a day where the major stops came out from the bottom of this price distribution. And what I've been mentioning before was, as soon as price can't hold 1300, there will be a swift move back to value, and then perhaps across the range into the lower portion of the previous distribution, 1208.30. And right now, in one day, we nearly got halfway there, which is impressive. And this is what I mean before. You have price distributions here, and the market will trade in that distribution. And then you develop a price distribution above that level, and ideally you would see expansion to the upside and create another one. But if you fail to hold it, typically speaking, you auction across the previous price distribution. High odds at the time. So basically, this is a significant move. I would say that the first significant bounce could be a selling opportunity as high as back into 1306 to 1310. Ideally, if this thing is going to continue lower, you'd want a more shallow bounce in the 1290, and you want to see a continuation into value. But right now, the fact that price broke below support implies a move back toward value at the very least, and that would be somewhere in the 1240s. All right, let's take a look at the NQ. Here's the NQ. The NQ has been quite bullish. It's held at these highs. We have a clear trading range that's basically played out from 4,800 up to 4,900, and price has been in that range over the last 3 weeks. I mentioned before the fact that we were up near the previous week's high was very important. I said any push into the previous week's high should look to be defended, and you got 3 trades. You have a potential scalping trade back to intraday value. You have a day trade back down toward 48.40, and then those were the 2 trades. And then you have a swing trade potential from there back toward the 4,800, 4,804 level. So that could be where we see by the end of the day. And you can see yesterday the high was right there, and it was rejected back down. And so being at the upper end of this range here implies that we could see a little bit more rotation back into support. But any push beyond 48.90 now could begin to run the stops, as we've been seeing higher highs. So we could be looking at more strength ahead if price starts to run the stops above 48.90 and 4900. That would then begin to target these upside targets here on the weekly PivotBoss pivots. Now if we take a look at the intraday time frame, here's what I mentioned yesterday again. If you go back to the pre-market report, if we come into the previous high for the week, look to sell it, and the idea was a scalp back to value. Value was right here, so we missed it by 3 ticks, but it was a highly confirmed move. The second opportunity up here after price came back was another opportunity to get in, and by the end of the day, I said the day trade, you can get back to 48.40. So if you held that and you just held on for a day trade, you could get that. So both of those came true. Now the next deal is if price can continue to hold below the previous week's high, you have to then get back below the previous week's close though. So price needs to reject 48.63 at some point here. So at some point price needs to fail. That would imply a continuation back toward 4,800. Otherwise, we could be looking at a trading range market back into this zone. So keep an eye on 48.63 right now. Bulls are looking to keep that area bid for a shot at testing 48.85. Failure to hold above 48.65 would suggest a return back toward lows. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.